What's up, everybody? This is how to train or how to stay healthy and train during the coronavirus quarantine. Some of you might not be fully quarantined, but let's switch over to this video here. So we're going to go over a quick overview of the coronavirus right now. So in the US, it looks like about 80% of people are recovering just fine on their own. It's kind of like a bad cold for some people. About 20% of people have been hospitalized. That is a little low. I mean, that's a little high, to be honest, because if somebody got coronavirus but didn't show symptoms, they didn't get tested. So of the people who have been tested, about 20% are being hospitalized. So technically, it is probably lower than that. So that's some good news. And then based on the data right now for how many people have tested positive and have died from it, the number appears to be 2.5 in the US. However, again, not everybody has been tested who actually has it, so it's less than 2%. So that's kind of going off the best data we have, but we don't have the best data at this point. So what I want to focus on is what leads to this death here, from hospitalization to death. And there are a few things that we can see between people who are dying. And these tend to be people who have different health issues that seem to succumb to this virus. One, so age. As you get older, your immune system isn't as robust, and so that is definitely a risk factor for you. Two is just some health things. So obesity. A lot of the people who are dying, particularly in the US, do seem to be having some weight issues. Some of the reasons for that are, one, being a little heavier than what is healthy tends to decrease your immune response. So that is not ideal for this. And we can actually, I'll show you real quick here again. These are the healthy ranges for body composition. So again, for men, you want to be between, for this class, most of us are young, between the 8 to 19%. And then for women, between 21 and 33%. So that's kind of what that looks like. So you want to maintain a good healthy weight. Of course, this is not BMI. This is body fat percentage, and those numbers are different. So, okay. So in order to help yourself out, hopefully, you're in the healthy range there, because otherwise this is a risk factor and this doesn't go away immediately, right? Number 3, smoking. So we saw this in China. Quite a few men smoke in China, and we did see that males tended to die at a higher rate. And so any type of lung damage that you have, or any other lung conditions, because this is a respiratory infection, and so it attacks your lung tissue. And if we think about this, inside your lungs you have cells, right? And the coronavirus, which looks like this, we've all seen photos of it now, it attaches to one of your lung cells like this. And then let's say this is a cell, and then it enters into that cell. And then once it gets into a cell, it replicates a bunch, and then it kills that cell, and then the virus is spread outward. And so we have seen some people have some respiratory issues with this, where they get lung damage because too much of their cell is dying. What happens when this process begins is that you get an immune response, and your immune system tries to stop the attacker, right, or the coronavirus. And so it sends all kinds of aid this direction, and oftentimes what occurs from that is called pneumonia. So I don't actually think there's an E there. Know how to spell it. There we go. I think that's pneumonia. So basically, pneumonia is when you get liquid inside of your lungs, and your lungs are huge. And if you take a deep breath in, you can feel them extending all the way down, even into your back, and they're up to your shoulder blades and all the way down. So if you get pneumonia, basically you're getting liquid inside of your lungs, and this liquid is trying to help and attack the virus, but sometimes it actually is what is killing people. And so as your lungs fill up with liquid, if they fill up too much, you need to be put on a ventilator, because imagine having liquid in your lungs, how hard that is to breathe. People tend to tire out, is what it's called, if they can't get rid of that liquid. And so you need to put them on a ventilator, otherwise they can't breathe for themselves. And so the fatigue from those respiratory muscles can get to a point where people just can't breathe, and then from a lack of oxygen, they start experiencing organ failure. So kidney issues has been another risk factor here. So any type of compromised system tends to leave people vulnerable to this disease. We have some other things like high blood pressure, tends to be a risk factor for this. Diabetes is a risk factor. So a lot of the things that we've already talked about in this class in terms of nutrition, they are risk factors here. And this kind of brings us down to how to boost our immune system and how to give us a good shot against this virus. So exercise is good for, well, it decreases aging. It helps control overall weight. Exercise and smoking don't really have anything to do with each other, but you should. This is a good time to stop smoking if you are. Blood pressure, exercise helps control that. Exercise helps control diabetes or your blood sugar. So we're going to talk more about this, but again, exercise in general to also boost your immune system. So we want to make sure we're doing that. We got nutrition as well, eating plants, fruits, vegetables, all those things, nuts, seeds, those all going to be really good for your immune system, so we can check that off. Along with this, let's jump down to vitamin D. Vitamin D is interesting. It's the only vitamin that we've seen to actually reduce your chance of respiratory infections. And again, coronavirus is a respiratory infection. So I'm taking one vitamin D pill per day, and it is a 5,000, I believe that's micrograms right there, pill per day, just with a meal. So something to think about. You can also get sunlight. Sunlight helps synthesize vitamin D for you. And then some sleep here. So we've already talked about that, but 8 hours of sleep is going to be good. That's going to boost your immune system. A lack of sleep really impairs your immune system, which then causes some problems here. Speaking of this, before I forget, sometimes, so with the coronavirus, people have been getting the fever. And when you get a fever, the fever is another immune response, right? And it's trying to raise the temperature so that the virus can't survive. And sometimes people, when they get sick, they try and control their fever with ibuprofen or some other NSAID, right? Aspirin. But what they've found in some limited trials, particularly in Europe, is that by lowering your fever response, you're actually reducing your effectiveness at fighting the virus. So if you do get coronavirus and you're at home, make sure that you don't take ibuprofen, because so far studies have shown that you don't want to reduce your fever. It's going to suck, but you want to maintain that fever to help you fight the virus. Along with that, if we go down here to stopping smoking, so again, people are dying from not being able to breathe. And so you want your lungs to be in the healthiest situation so that when these lung cells start dying, you don't already have a bunch of dead ones. So it just improves your chances. So reduce smoking, minimize stress, because stress reduces our immune function, and then maintain good hygiene. So avoid touching your face if you can, wash your hands, cough into your sleeve, right? Maybe wear a mask. I think the CDC is recommending wearing masks now. So that's kind of an overview. We're going to get a little more specific on how you can train during the coronavirus. Let me check out some questions. Yes, just put your question in the chat and then I'll get to those. So vaping, good question. Does this go for vaping too, the smoke? I don't actually know how vaping impacts your lung cells. If I had to guess, it's not ideal. But what I do know is that vaping with the nicotine is going to increase blood pressure. So I would reduce it, but I don't have enough information on that. I hear tonic water is a way to help prevent coronavirus. Do you know anything about that, or is it even true? If I had to guess, I don't think it is true. I don't know what in tonic water would really help you there, but I haven't really looked into that. But I would doubt that has an impact. And when would a fever get too high and need to be? Oh, good question. So when would a fever get too high and need to be managed? I forget the number, but you can get quite warm, I believe, before brain damage starts occurring. So I think, and I'm just going off of memory here, so I think around like 103.5 to 104 is completely fine, and I think you can maybe get up to 108, but that would be, we'd have to ask somebody more knowledgeable on that topic. So good questions though. Tylenol over Advil. when we were talking about controlling that temperature. In my opinion, I would avoid anything that reduces your fever. Again, doctors are going to know more. They're more up to date on all of this. But just from what I've learned, anything reducing your fever is not going to be ideal. If you are getting too high of a fever, then I think it would be best to actually go in and have the doctors prescribe to you what you need. There was a really sad story. One guy went into the hospital. He was released because he was doing fine. And then one night he was struggling to breathe again, and him and his wife were sleeping in different rooms because he had coronavirus. And he was struggling to breathe, but he went to bed, and his wife stayed up really late with him to make sure that he was fine. And then at some point in the night, he tired out and he just stopped breathing. And then when she woke up at like 6 a.m., she only slept for a few hours. He was not breathing anymore. So, if you do get it, or if you know somebody who gets it and they're having a hard time breathing, you do want to get them put on a ventilator because, again, those muscles tire out and then you're just not able to breathe. And then that is what ends up doing you in. So when do I... All right, let me try to go in order here because we're rolling. Other than letting your fever run its course, are there other things you can do to fight the virus if you're bedridden? All right, yeah, so try to get sleep, although it's really hard when you're struggling to breathe. Eating really well, mostly all these things with the immune system. Again, there are some, we can't get access to them, unless you're diagnosed, but like hydrochloroquine, which there's lots of controversy over that may be effective. Other than that, it's just maintaining your health, trying to get your calories because that's going to help you fight the virus off. Staying hydrated, that's another one I could add here. Hydration, that'll help you sweat when you have that fever. So, and just, it's good overall. Okay. Ask more if you have any other suggestions on that. When do I think life will return to normal? It's hard to say, although most data right now is actually looking fairly promising. So obviously class is canceled for the rest of the semester, but they're starting to roll out testing that is looking at your antibodies. So for instance, if you were young, some people aren't even showing symptoms. So like you or me could have got the virus, right? Our whole class could have had it, and maybe only a few people got it because a few students at Boise State had it. So it definitely went around. But if you have antibodies for it, theoretically you won't get reinfected. Again, there's lots of varying reports on that. But I think if we could get the antibody test out and we could start testing young people, we can start sending them back to work, and then old people might need to continue to shelter in place, or, immune compromised people might need to shelter in place until we get a vaccine, which will probably take a year. So I think full normal will be once we get a full vaccine. I think relatively normal will be 1 to 3 months, but the market's doing pretty good today, and we need to hopefully not have too many people lose their jobs. So, all right, good. What is the needed dosage for taking vitamin D pill to get the fight? Good question. To get the 5,000 UI from sunlight. I don't know if there's a direct conversion, but they say that 30 minutes in the sun of forearms and face exposed is enough sunlight. We're still early in the year and we're fairly north, so I would say you might need a little bit more than that. So maybe 45 minutes to an hour of face and forearms in order to get the sunlight that you need. So, good question. What are other type of vitamin D supplements you recommend? It's just vitamin D3. So that's really all I recommend, and then eating fruits and vegetables. Yep, good. Okay. What vitamin D supplements have you found work best? Does vitamin D only prevent respiratory, or does it help prevent fever as well? So the fever is separate, and I don't really know the mechanism from that vitamin D and how it actually helps with respiratory infections. So that's about as far as my knowledge goes. I heard that masks won't work. If we do use one, what kind of masks are more effective? So N95s are the most effective. Masks will work. The reason they said that right away is because they wanted hospital workers to have them because it's more important for hospital workers. Masks don't work a lot of times because people don't know how to keep them clean. Because if you go out to the store and you have a mask on, you touch a bunch of stuff, you take your mask off in a careless way, well, now you have the virus. Even scarves do work because they slow things down. So not perfect, but N95s are said to work and filter the virus out. So that seems to be pretty good there. Vitamin D sunlight can boost your immune system. Then is it true that warmer weather will help combat the virus? Yes, potentially. So from what I've read, the virus seems to spread most in 45-degree temperatures, or it lives the longest on surfaces that are at 45 degrees. So it might be cooler is fine too, but theoretically, if you have high temperature heat, right, like in Arizona, it might not live as long on surfaces, so then it doesn't spread as quickly. That's why the flu spreads so quickly during the winter months, because it's colder and the flu survives longer during winter months. So yeah, so warm weather should help, hopefully. We're hoping. But then again, the coronavirus could come back in the fall if we don't get enough. So you have this issue where if enough people don't get infected now, you might not get herd immunity. And then in the fall, what happens is people get reinfected because you don't have a whole lot of people infected. So what's better than a full-on quarantine might be what we're doing, where people can still kind of move around and we just slow the infection. But if enough people have it, that could be beneficial if not too many of us die. Good question. All right. Yeah, so, okay. Would you suggest working out outside if possible, getting vitamin D in and your exercise? I would. If you can leave, yes. Getting outside a little bit, it'll help you mentally too. Get some sunlight, get some exercise, fresh air, all of the above. So, yes, I would. Chloroquine itself is related to quinine, an ingredient in tonic water. That's why I asked. Oh, okay. I haven't heard that, so maybe that story about some lady who took fish cleaner because it had chloroquine in it. Don't do that. So just because something has a similar ingredient doesn't mean it's the same, right? Because that fish cleaner ended up killing her husband and almost killed her. But yeah, I'm not sure about that one. So maybe. Would using a humidifier, chest rub help breathing at all if you have corona? Potentially. I think a lot of that is to keep your airway moist when you're sick and just make your life more comfortable. But I haven't heard anything about that really helping a whole lot because you have liquid inside your lungs and you need some type of antibacterial to fight that pneumonia off. How beneficial do you think electrolytes are on top of drinking water? I don't think they are necessary for fighting off the coronavirus. I think that's more for like muscle function during exercise. Maybe if you're breathing really heavy, potentially. Yep. And maybe rehydrating yourself because sometimes those drinks can increase your absorbability of that water. Do we need to ask? Yep, just one question in the week and then you're good. So, is a cardio or resistance exercise more effective for boosting your immune system? The answer is both, but you can also overdo it. So people a lot of times overdo it with cardio. But both will boost your immune system. Yep, that's the best answer I can give there. When exercising at home, do you suggest focusing on muscle groups or full body? I'm going to talk about that real quick here in a second. What are some ways to keep up your motivation to work out while stuck in quarantine? Just trying to maintain health and try to maintain a schedule as normally as you can because you're going to get way off. Your sleep schedule is going to become trash. So trying to wake up early. My new routine is I'm going to try and wake up in the mornings and go exercise if I can because I've been fairly lazy. So that's what I would suggest. But it's hard, and I'm going to talk about some things you can improve, particularly fitness-wise during quarantine. So that'll maybe help with motivation as well. Is cardio most effective to improve person's lungs? Yes, to an extent, but you don't really improve your lungs a whole lot. You do maintain their pliability and you do improve your breathing muscles, but your lungs don't improve a whole lot. I mean, it does help, but do you think working outside trails or parks is spreading the virus? I don't think it's spreading the virus if you keep a distance between people. So you shouldn't be, running right behind them. But they say if you keep a 6-foot radius, you should be good. So you can work outside, I believe. What are some techniques to try and stay motivated to work out when you're restricted from going to the gym or local parks? Yeah, that's a tough one. A lot of you have already asked that. I would say just do small exercise. So maybe go for a 10-minute walk, maybe do some push-ups, maybe do some sit-ups. And again, I'm going to talk about some ways we can improve, and that'll probably give you guys some motivation as well. When you have a fever, what are some good ways to keep it down without taking medication? you kind of just got to let it run its course. So water is going to help you with hydration. But the point of the fever is to kind of like bake yourself, and then you're also baking the virus. And so running its course, obviously if it gets too high, you got to go to the doctor to make sure it doesn't get too high, because like in a hospital, what they'll do is they'll put people on ice, right? They'll just surround you by ice to keep that temperature low so you don't, boil your brain basically. Oh, all right. Before I get back to the workouts, what is my fastest mile time? It's going to sound fast, but to other track people in the world, it's quite slow. I think I ran 4:28. I only ran one in college, and I pulled my hamstring, so maybe 4:32 was what I ran in high school. I believe if I would have been healthy, I could have ran a 4:18. So that's me in an ideal situation, but I couldn't break 4 minutes. Do I think workout equipment will be back in stock later this summer or perhaps sooner? It's sold out almost everywhere. Oh, really? Actually, all the electronics that I use too sold out. So I was Craigslisting hard for stuff. So supply lines are majorly disrupted right now. So I'm not sure how long until things are back on the shelves, because China's struggling with this, and we get most of our goods from China. So I have no idea. It'll probably be 6 months before we see things readily available again, if I had to guess. Would you say that multivitamins while exercising and eating plenty of calories are what is the best for staying healthy while quarantining? Yes, and if you're eating fruits and vegetables, I don't believe you need a multivitamin, but it doesn't hurt. So yes, I would say that would probably be best. Okay, so good questions. I am going to go over some things that we can do, some things that we can improve upon, and maybe this will give you guys some motivation as well. So some workouts you can do right now with limited capabilities. So one of the things you could start doing is increasing your muscle mass. And ideally, when we're increasing muscle mass, this is called hypertrophy training. And then I'll get back to the questions once I go over a little bit of this. So feel free to keep asking. So hypertrophy training is increasing your muscle size. And this tends to give us that toned good look. So if that's something you're interested in, you got plenty of time probably now. You're stuck at home. So let's just look at a beginner one. Let's say you're not working out at all. Before I do that, let me show you guys this chart here. So this is kind of a chart of muscle adaptation. And as you can see there on the hypertrophy line, hypertrophy doesn't start for quite a while. So when you start working out initially, you have this neuromuscular system, and it's kind of the electrical signals that allow your muscles to fire and contract. And that's where you're getting most of your strength gains right away, is from that neural adaptation. And so if you're starting from a baseline, you don't really need to do anything special, and you're going to see huge gains. So that is some good news for you. So if we look at a beginner program, and I'm going to kind of show you how I would use this. So this is the strength cheat sheet that we made the other day. This is my personal one. And so what I would do with a beginner training is I would just go to this sheet, and since we are on mostly using only body weight stuff, we have hip bridge, single leg RDL. I think I'm going to go down here and go to let's do some lunges. So you can do 3 by 10 lunges. And the reason you do 3 by 10 is because you want to re-stress that muscle. So you stress the muscles once, take a little break, stress the muscles again. So you want to re-stress. It's called the overload principle. So I would do lunges, and then maybe let's scroll down to pectoral muscles. Push-ups are easy, so let's do some push-ups here. Let's stick with the 3 by 10. You can do knee push-ups, you can do wall push-ups. If we keep going down, upper back, maybe you have a pull-up bar, so you could do some pull-ups. If you don't have pull-ups, I like to do these, and they actually work pretty well if you do them for about a minute. Let me bring this down here. So just shoulder or just presses with your hands. If you squeeze your shoulder blades together and do this for about a minute, I'll guarantee that you're going to be sore the next day, especially if you do that 3 times. So you can do that. If you have a pull-up machine, you can do pull-ups. Find some way to get creative. If you have a TRX band, body weight for the back can be a little weird if you don't have a pull-up bar or something like that. So let's go back to this and this. All right, maybe you can only do 3 pull-ups, so 3 by 3. That would be really good. A lot of times people like to do a lot of ab work, one of the things when you're doing ab work is you want to have some balance. So you also want to work the lower back. So I'm going to add some Supermans because I think those are pretty good without any equipment. Let's just say 10 of those by 3. And then since we want to do some abs, maybe we'll do some bicycle crunches. Bicycle crunches, 3 by 20. Maybe you can do more than that, or you can even do it by 30 seconds, however you want to do that. And then maybe we'll just finish off with some calf raises. 3 by 10. So that's a pretty good beginner workout. You're going to get lots of gains, and you will be developing muscle mass, although it just takes a little while. So when we're talking about that, you don't need to go super hard right away with your exercise. Just make it nice and easy and just start slowly getting into it, because if you just kill yourself and then you feel super sore the next day, it's going to decrease your motivation. Okay, let's say we want to actually build muscle and we work out fairly hard. So some techniques that we can do is we can do some upper and lower body days. So upper, lower body days. So the reason why people do upper and lower body days is so they can add more stress to the muscle, and then that'll cause more muscle gains. So if you're doing like a lower body day, let's say we're doing a lower body day here, and let's go back over to this list. We could start out with some, let's do some squats first. And you can change up these sets. Like let's say you've really been lifting hard and you don't want to lose some of your gains. You can do 6 sets of 10, right? You can hold something heavy to make that more difficult. You can do 6 sets of 20. If you're adding sets, then you're going to be doing a lot more work, which then will lead to more muscle gains. You could do some lunges following that, maybe 6 by 10. So you go really hard on those. Then you can move to maybe like 3 by 10 for hip bridges. So this is going to be your glutes right here. Bridges. There we go. We could do some hip circles. That's kind of where you're on all fours and you rotate your knee and hip as wide as you can, nice and slow. You really only need about 5 of those each side. So if we did 3 by 5, that'd get you a pretty good workout. You can maybe, if we were going to add a little bit of power in here, we could add some box jumps in here if you wanted to, or some broad jumps or whatever you want there. We could add some calf raises. You get the idea. So we're just doing a bunch of leg exercises one day, and then you can do a bunch of upper body exercises the next day. People do this as well with like doing shoulders and like chest and buys someday, or maybe shoulders and tries, or back and tries another day. So instead of doing upper and lower, you can start, isolating muscles. Some people, on YouTube, there's tons of videos like, chest workouts. So you're just doing your chest. I don't recommend these for beginners. This is if you're really trying to put on a lot of muscle mass. You can just isolate one area, do lots of work, you're doing lots of damage, but then that'll maximize your gains there. I have another method here. What was it? Oh, yeah. So it is called... before I talk about that, when you are structuring your workouts, you want to do large muscle groups first. So, because those take more energy, and then you want to do the smaller muscle groups later. Okay, so another thing we can do is compound sets. So compound sets with low rest. And so basically you can go squats to lunges with like 20 seconds rest in between. And what you're doing is you're really stressing just those muscles. And that is, there we go. So 20 seconds of rest in between, and you're just not allowing those muscle fibers to recover. So that'll add more stimulus to gaining muscle. So you can add a lot of muscle to yourself just by doing at-home body weight. You got to get a little creative, but by doing high reps or high sets or low rest or compounding them, right, where you're doing them 2 together, that's a good way to add some muscle mass to you. All right, so we also have power, and it's kind of hidden here, but right here, power. I went over my limit of space there. But with power training, what this is speed times by strength. So you're getting some strength from this, particularly you're getting muscle mass. And then with speed, you're adding a speed element. So when I talked about these box jumps up here, this would be adding a power element to this workout. So what I would like to do with this is, instead of doing a lower body with power, maybe if we go over to this beginner exercise, you could add in some broad jumps here where you're just standing 2 feet and trying to jump out as far as possible. So some broad jumps. And then maybe push-ups, you could do some Rocky push-ups. That's an explosive movement. Any of those explosive fast movements are going to increase your power. And power is kind of your ability to react strongly and quickly all at the same time. So agility kind of falls under power, because if you are quick at reacting and you have some strength, that tends to increase your agility. You can also do agility drills, right? You can go out into your yard or something. You can, set out cones or like a ladder. And there's all kinds of different exercises you can do where you're practicing foot quickness. So that's another thing you can actually do while you're under quarantine. Okay, let me see what questions we have here. What is the ideal amount of sets overall workout for fat loss? Well, if we're looking at hypertrophy training, technically hypertrophy training, which you want for fat loss, building lots of muscle is going to be good as well as losing fat. But for building the muscle aspect, technically you want to be lifting heavy enough to where you can only lift a weight 8 to 12 times. So that's not ideal when you don't have a weight room. So I don't know how you can do that effectively without it. But, for push-ups, let's say you can do 30 push-ups. Maybe try to elevate your legs on a bed so then you can do only less push-ups, because and taking the shorter rest is going to maximize your muscle gain. So pretty much this setup here, where you're maybe focusing on one muscle group area, or shortening your rest, or trying to add weight so you can only do 8 to 12 reps, that's going to be best for changing your body composition overall. And I would say if you're beginning, 3 sets is enough. As you get more complex, moving up to 6 would be beneficial. So good question. Okay, now on to endurance. So if you can go outside, you can do your HIIT workouts, right? And we've already created those, so I'm not going to go into that too much, but you can start walking until you feel good, and then you can run hard for 30 seconds, take a break for 30 seconds, run hard again for 30 seconds. You can do 30 seconds on, let's say that means you're running, and then 30 seconds off where you're just relaxing. You can do that times 6, maybe times 8. And that's going to be the most bang for your buck for endurance. And it's going to raise your VO2 max. It's going to raise your lactic threshold. If you want to learn more about that, on Thursday, I think I'm doing the how to improve your endurance, or how to improve for endurance events. So that would be a good session to attend. And then you can cool down there. However, some of you might not be able to go outside. And, if you can, just go for any type of cardio that will work. If you can't go outside, what I recommend is doing some type of circuit training. So we kind of, I don't know how to spell clearly. There we go, circuit training. So again, we've made charts for this, and you do have to you do have to try out those exercises that you created from last week for your assignments. So circuit training, you're just throwing a bunch of exercises closely together, and then you're going to complete those fairly quickly. And then the process of that, your heart rate's going to get really high. So when we're trying to improve our endurance, we want to be spiking our heart rate up, and we want to be breathing hard. That's going to be how we improve our endurance. So you can do basically the same beginner workout here, actually, and you can do it for time instead of for reps. So you can say, all right, I'm going to do lunges for 30 seconds, and then I'm going to do push-ups, and you just go straight into push-ups for 30 seconds, and you get the idea. Pull-ups, you can say 30 seconds. That would be tough. And you can do this 3 times through. You can do it for 10 minutes total until your timer is up. You can add any exercise you want there. So another really good way to improve endurance, especially if you're breathing hard and working hard, sweating a lot, that is going to be increasing your endurance, because you're going to be producing lactic acid. And then as lactic acid goes up, lactate, there we go. As your lactic acid goes up, you are actually improving more. You're able to clear that, and then you're going to be able to perform better overall. So a good way to maintain that fitness while you're indoors, if that's what you have to do. And then last, I've been getting lots of questions on flexibility. So one thing about flexibility, and this is important, is you need to warm up first. If you are just stretching and you haven't got a good warm-up in and you haven't got a light sweat going, you're not doing a whole lot. So once you're warm, then your muscle is much more pliable and much more easy to move. So there are tons of yoga videos online if you want to do yoga. What I would recommend is doing yoga with some type of strength element where you're doing maybe push-ups in between some of your poses, because then you're getting a strength element there. Or doing like some cardio before you do your warm-up. So maybe you go for a 15-minute walk or jog, take your dog out, whatever you got to do. Maybe do a circuit training thing and then end with some yoga, because yoga is combining movement with stretching, and I think that's a good way to do some stretching and increase your flexibility. So they say, somewhere between 30 seconds and 5 minutes of stretching is what you need. I've read a study where they said that you need 5 minutes before the muscle lengthens. 30 seconds can help release the muscle. So if we're thinking about your muscle fibers, they're kind of like this. They slide in and out. Part of stretching is you're just getting those fibers. Sometimes when you damage them, they get stuck together. So when you're stretching, you're just pulling them out, letting them slide back and forth. If you are trying to lengthen your muscles, that's where it might take 5 minutes of that stretch, because you're trying to pull this way and actually lengthen those out. And that can take quite a while to actually lengthen the muscle. But, I think stretching is beneficial, particularly in a yoga type format where you're moving around. And in my opinion, as long as you're able to do all the motions that you need to do, then you're flexible enough. Unless, you're like a gymnast and you need, or a dancer or something, and you need that extra mobility. But if you have the mobility to move around comfortably, then I think you're pretty good on flexibility. But those are just some ways to organize your weeks. Let's take a look at, I'm going to take this off here. Oh, and you couldn't even see that muscle example. What I was showing you with the muscle fibers was they look like this, and they don't always contract in and out. Sometimes they get stuck. So, okay. Now in your weeks, you can do a lot of all this stuff at the same time. So if we have, like, let's just say Monday, today, you decide to do one of your strength workouts that you created last week, also known as resistance training. There is a slight difference, but it can be considered the same. So a resistance training workout on Monday. Maybe Tuesday you take the day off because you're not feeling it. Wednesday you could do a circuit training workout. Next day, if you can go outside, you could go do a HIIT workout outside, do some cardio there. Do another resistance training day here. Maybe take Saturday off, and maybe take then you just go out for another HIIT workout here. Or maybe just an easy cardio day, right? You can do all kinds of things. If you're trying to particularly build muscle, what I would recommend is, I'm just going to call this hyper. So you have a hypertrophy day here. Maybe you have legs this day. Tuesday, you follow that up with some arms, so upper body. Wednesday, let's just say you go for some cardio, just some easy cardio, because you need that to keep your heart healthy. But you need a recovery day. One of the things about lifting hard is if you go out for an easy recovery day, so you're just walking or maybe a slight jog or something, you're getting fresh blood flow, which can speed up your recovery process from those hard workouts there. And then maybe you hit another legs day with that hypertrophy training, hit another upper body day, another easy cardio day here, get outside maybe, get some vitamin D, and then take Sunday off. So this is something, if you're trying to improve your muscle mass, a setup that you can do to maximize your strength gains or your muscle mass gains during this. So that's kind of a workout that I would recommend. And then, if you're really trying to improve your cardio, let's say, and you're stuck inside, I would recommend doing circuit training 3 to 4 days a week. Maybe we'll go back to back here. Circuit training. And then let's say this day you're going to do also your hypertrophy workout and your hypertrophy workout. So technically you could get everything done in 4 days and still take 3 days off and have a pretty good setup there. And this is more based towards cardio. So you're still getting 4 days of cardio, maintaining that mitochondrial density, and still getting some strength workouts in there as well. So, okay, we have that. Let's see if I had any questions that I missed. I don't think I did. If I missed one of your questions, re-ask, and I will get to that. We have one final section here, which are some tips and tricks, which are kind of interesting. And let me know if you've heard of this in the chat. Blood flow restriction. So this is kind of an interesting way to do strength training. Basically what you're doing is you are restricting your blood flow to from leaving one of your limbs. So let's say I'm going to do some bicep curls. You would take a band and you'd wrap it around your arm up here. You don't want to go too tight because you don't want to create like a tourniquet and stop all blood flow from your arm. The way it works is you have blood being sent out to your arm in deep arteries, and then you have veins sending your blood back to your heart that are on the surface. So when you wrap your little band around your arm, what you're doing is you're stopping blood from coming back to your heart, but you're letting it go in. So you don't want to tie it too tight because you want those deep veins to still be able to deliver blood to the limb, and then you don't want the blood to be able to escape. And then basically what you do is you lift something super lightweight. So I did a little bit of this training for a little bit, and I was lifting like 5-pound dumbbells, and I was just doing 30 bicep curls, and it burns. It's a tough workout. And basically what you're doing is you're trapping all that blood inside your limb. Let's say this is your arm here. I can't really draw, but I've got a hand. So when you tie off up here, you're not letting blood escape. You're only letting blood get in, and then it's getting blocked when it tries to escape. And then what happens is you build up all these metabolites, and for whatever reason, that seems to increase strength or maintain strength. So a lot of times if people suffer a muscle injury or something, like a strength workout or a strength lifter or a bodybuilder, and they can't lift heavy weights, they can do blood flow restriction workouts, lift light weights, and for whatever reason, that environment is producing strength gains, and they haven't quite nailed down exactly what is doing it. It could be a lack of oxygen, something with the buildup in the cells, and they are responding to that and then growing actually. So really interesting stuff right there. You can do this on your leg as well. Don't just jump right into this. I would look in to some videos or some articles and look how to apply the wrap appropriately. I'm not going to spend time teaching you that. But the point is you can lift really light weight and just put out some reps, and then you can get really good results this way. And so it's another way to train indoors. And then the last thing I want to mention is training for new skills. So since you probably have extra time right now, maybe you want to learn how to play guitar or piano or who knows what skill you have. When you're looking at developing new skills, when you're really improving your skills is when you go to sleep. So what you want to think about doing is just consistently doing that new skill. So it could be working out, it could be playing a musical instrument. And if you do like 15 minutes to 1 hour per day, and then you go to sleep, you sleep obviously at night, that's when your body is really learning those skills. So, you don't want to take the whole time or you're not motivated. Just tell yourself, all I need to do is practice whatever you want to get better at for 15 minutes, and then you're done for the day. So I would recommend this while you're at home. Develop a new skill, right? Because you probably have extra time that you don't need to waste all of it, but, do we have any final thoughts, any final questions? All right, I think that's good then. So we will sign out. Thanks for coming by. I'll stick around for another 2 minutes. If you have questions, feel free to ask. But other than that, we're all done here. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.